we're up to 4.1.
Yeah, 4.1.
Page 213.
Oh yeah, Ross, can you hear us okay?
I can. Yep. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Absolutely.
Very good.
Right, so we will reconvene, and you've read this on the pre-reading, I guess, guys, but I'll just open up for Ross to speak to it a little bit before we talk about it. Is there anything you want to add to your report, Ross?
Not particularly. I guess you've got it all there. There's been quite a bit of work involved looking at the options for the toilet at Tautu, which is in the report. I guess the key message is really that the funding or the co-funding was premised on the fact that we would get local support and evidence of local support, which has been very difficult to get, and iwi have some cultural issues that are quite dear to their heart. So we did look at a range of options, and unfortunately it's looking like sort of going back to the drawing board.
Yeah, is there any comments from the board?
Yep. Hi, Ross. I just wanted to just ask, I didn't actually see the letter from Ngāti Tamatera, so I'm not quite sure what it was, and when it talked about the significant site and it being Wahitapu. Can you first? I've got two questions, but first of all, is the Wahitapu that they talk about, is that from the one end of the esplanade and go right through to the other side where the houses are built?
Yeah, my understanding is, and I did have I had some correspondence on site, but also in a follow-up one-on-one meeting actually at council offices. So we felt strong enough to come in and talk to me independently, and it was basically the area on the eastern side, if you're looking at that image there of the housing. Mm-hmm. So where 1A and 1 is, that area there historically has quite a big significance to Māori, and yeah, they didn't want anything to happen in that space at all. Even with, we looked at that 1A location that actually you suggested, or the board member suggested, where there's an area possibly of disturbed ground anyway, and they still weren't keen on that being an option.
But that wasn't necessarily, 1A wasn't necessarily included in the actual Wahitapu area, though. Because when we were there with Jamie, that's what he said. It wasn't.
Yeah, I know. He said that on site, and then, as I said, there was another meeting, and I did mention 1A, and I did mention what Jamie had said. However, that was basically, there was a bit of a blanket statement around that whole piece of land, including 1A, from iwi. They weren't at all keen on us to look at anywhere in that location.
Okay. Should Aotearoa Bay not proceed, then you mentioned there's other possibilities of using the TIF funding in other locations, and you mentioned Kirita Hill here, but we've had a community plan put forward this morning, and one of the comments from the community was Tokatia Hill. So I know you've mentioned Kirita, but do you think the top of the Tokatia could be another possibility? I don't know what the board think about that. But I know that when we went on our bus trip around the community, that was mentioned, that people were upset at the soiling that was happening at the top of the hill, just as on an ad hoc kind of a basis. So I'm just thinking possibly that might be a cheaper, if you like, alternative than something on the Kirita.
Through the chair, I guess I could answer from a cost perspective, probably slightly, but you know, the costs really lie in the actual construction, and that's off-site generally, and then it's trucked in and then excavated and put in place. So the cost is probably going to be not too much of a difference. it's probably up to the board to you guys know the area a lot better than I do, whether you think that other location's better than the Kirita. I guess the funding is all about visitors and providing a service for visitors. So you guys probably know where people are going and stopping.
What does the board think about Tokatia or Kirita?
Tokatia is probably pretty much more for the locals, I would think.
I wouldn't.
No,
Yeah.
I think the
It's
Tokatia
because
needs
of
to
the
be
dog
done.
lookout.
Yeah,
Those people
yeah.
going up there.
yeah.
Okay.
But the smell is horrendous. If you've been for a walk up there, it's shocking. Whereas you don't get that from the other side.
Probably both. Both, I'd say, eh?
Yeah.
Can I just make a suggestion? I'm happy with the resolution as it sits, and I think those discussions we could have at another time, rather than today.
Yep.
So if you're happy, I'm happy to move that resolution as it sits and move the whole thing at another time.
Okay, well, maybe you can bring some other options to a future workshop, Ross.
Yep,
We'll leave the
sure.
rest as it stands. Yep, I think that's a good suggestion from John. Anyone else have any discussion on that? So we've got a mover. Do we have a seconder?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. The resolution is received the comprehensive report on Atautu toilets dated 25th of March 2020. Discontinue the project to provide a public toilet facility at Atautu Bay following consultation with the Atautu Bay community and iwi, and investigate the options around the reallocation of TIF funding towards a public convenience at Kirita Hill. So we have a mover and a second. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried.
Can I abstain?
You can, yep.
Yeah, I'd like to abstain.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you, Ross. We look forward to hearing some options. Yep. So next up, we have a request for a bylaw. So this is in relation to the presentation we had this morning at the public forum.
Yeah, I reckon that Joe, our strategic planning manager, will be speaking to it.
Okay.
Hi, Joe.
Oh, and here we are. Hi, Joe.
Hi, all. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Yep. Thanks for joining us. We had a presentation this morning in public forum, and we've got the report here that we've all read in our pre-reading, but I'll just open up the floor for you to, if there's anything else you wish to add to your report.
Margaret's report, because she did a very good job on it. Essentially, while it seems like a good idea to have a bylaw for leg traps, there's actually a lot of work that goes into it. Like, we would need to actually do a very thorough investigation of where the dead kiwi was found, where the traps are going. We would need to talk to DOC, and that's even before we get to the consideration of a bylaw. You're looking to develop a new bylaw anywhere from 6 to 18 months, and that would require probably one of my team on that bylaw for 1.5 to 2 days a week. The planning program at the moment, we have no capacity to develop any new policies or bylaws for the next 12 months. A lot of this is arising from the long-term plan, annual plan processes. Long-term plan, we have to review 10 policies under that, and at the moment we have 6 bylaws currently undergoing review. So if the community board decided it was essential to move forward with this bylaw, a decision would have to be made at council level of what current bylaw review would need to be dropped. So it's definitely a balancing act. And then there's also the issue of cost. So financially, going out to consult, doing the investigation, and moving forward with that. So just at the moment, while it seems like a good idea and I support where the presenters this morning were coming from, it just doesn't feel doable from a policy and planning perspective, both from a resourcing point of view and from a financial point of view.
At this time? Okay. What would your thoughts be around the point that was made out this morning that one of these traps was found in a council cemetery in Thames? There's a public safety issue around that. I'm just wondering what kind of enforcement do we currently have in place or to prevent or prosecute someone that's done something like that?
I'm not aware of the fact trap was found in Thames. I only found that out this morning. It would be the role of the regulatory team to enforce that, but you would actually have to be able to track the leg trap back to the person who put it there, and that may not be as easy as we would want it to be. Enforcement wise, I'm not actually sure what we could do, to be honest, because it's a chicken and egg situation. There is no bylaw in place that would allow us to pose penalty. So,
to be fair, we can't hear you very well. We're getting about one word in five. So I gather that you're not sure what enforcement we could take, even if you could find the person that later.
Through the chair, I think Joe's right. It would be very. I mean, what you would do is you find a leg trap, and what do you twist to then? Because there's no name on it or anything, so it would be very hard to do anything. The other point I'd make is that we're definitely not resourced up in the enforcement space to be actively out there, doing patrols and these kind of things. Like the way we approach it is we respond to complaints and issues, and then you go in and have a look and try and deal with that. As Joe's captured, it's actually very hard to do anything about it. So if you have a bylaw in place, it's actually how can you actually?
How would you police it?
How would you police it? And then it becomes why put a bylaw in place if you can't police it? And I'm not saying it's a bad idea. I'm just saying these are the kind of things that we have to go through. And I think, as Joe said, it's actually quite a big process. So definitely not trying to sound negative about it. I think it's just making sure we can do it right. If we're going to do it, I'm all about making sure we do things properly. So
But just through, even if we didn't apprehend the offender as such, Bruce, the bylaw would still give you would it give you the power to seize the illegal plate, so you could actually, upon a complaint, upon finding these things, just remove the item anyway. Without that bylaw,
I don't know what power we have, if any, at the moment, that we find out on our reserve if there's no permission being sought or granted for it. I don't know what the rules are around seizing that at that time, whether we actually could or we couldn't. I don't even know how you put that. Brian Taylor will have a much better handle on that.
I think we would be able to seize the trap because it's a safety issue for the public. I can't tell you exactly what legislation we would be able to do that under, but really we would be able to take the trap away of a public space.
And I've heard a couple of times that the trapper needs to gain permission. What kind of legislation is that? Does that fall under?
Permission, I only know of permission from DOC under their legislation for laying a leg trap. It's not an issue that I've ever worked with before, and I would need to do further research on that if you wanted further information.
I think we do. And the other piece of information that I think we probably need is what's WRC's angle on all this? Because pest management's a WRC issue. It's not a council issue as such, but we're talking about council land. So we're just trying to figure out how we can roll that into our land and protect people and Kiwis and anything else from these traps. So I totally understand there's no appetite to progress this to a bylaw kind of stage at this point in time, given the LTP coming up and all the other work that's already underway. But I think maybe between now and maybe even the next committee meeting, we can do a little bit of research with WRC and just find out what's out there now that we might be able to amend a lot more efficiently.
Okay.
involve DOC in that discussion and WRC, and, they're all got offices locally. We should be able to find that kind of information out. And rather than go down the bylaw path, just see what's already out there.
Well, DOC has got quite a good policy. It doesn't specifically talk about leg trapping, but they've got quite good policy around it, and their policy could be extended to say on their land, and then we could therefore say, well, we accept DOC's policy, without us having to maybe develop the bylaw ourselves, but DOC could, and we could. And say, well, it's the same policy that we have. I don't know what the logistics or the legalities are around that, but it would bypass that thing of the cost, etc., and the time of bylaws, getting a bylaw in place.
Is a policy better than nothing?
A policy is better than nothing. You still have the timing issue, the resourcing issue, and the potential impact on the regulatory team through needing to enforce an additional matter.
We can.
Kim.
Well, I think we all feel a little bit the same, and we don't want it squashed, but can we just have it noted that it's something we want to work on in the future when resources and time is going to allow it?
I agree totally with you, Kim. I'm not prepared to walk away and forget this.
I don't think we should.
And it has to start from somewhere. So even if it's to go on a to-do list, at least it's better than nothing.
Yep.
So I do want to advance this. So what's the best way to do that, my friend?
I would do a resolution to get me to put it on our work program.
Thank you.
Just noting, and I'm just going to be really honest, we have 102 tasks on the current work program. So if you want it to be made a priority, you might need to put that in the resolution as well.
That would be the starting point for me.
Yeah. So that's another. I don't think we need to make it a priority, but I think just to get it on the to-do list, and in the meantime, maybe we do a little bit of research around what WRC, what their head is in this space, and what the docs say about this, and what permission legislation looks like, what people have to do to ask permission to do this, and then maybe just in the interim between now and then, we can just do a little bit more homework.
Okay, I'm happy with that.
Awesome.
Now I've got 103.
103. Yeah, I understand Rotorua have already got a bylaw, so I don't know how.
We have, but it doesn't go, it's not comprehensive enough, but it could be easily adapted.
That could fall into some of your research. I'm sure it would anyway.
I can send her the link.
All right.
All right.
Any more pest management talk? There being none, the recommendation is that the Coromandel-Colville Community Board receive the bylaw request report dated 29th April 2020, and we've got a new resolution, which you're going to read my mind, and so request that the policy team add possible bylaw to their investigative list.
Be included on their work program, on the strategic planning work program.
Excellent.
Does the priority for that work, does that get put before council and they decide what goes in front and what goes back, or is that decided?
That's a discussion between Steve Hunt, our group manager, and myself. However, this year's priorities are determined by the LTP process and the annual report process.
Yeah.
And one of those priorities is freedom camping.
That's pest management too, isn't it?
We could see the tracks in those places.
Being recorded.
I know, I just blushed about that. So anyway, we're moving back on to the resolution is that the.
He's talking about himself.
Board receive the bylaw request report dated 29th April 2020, and a second item be added that requests the addition of the bylaw on the strategic planning work program.
I'll move that.
Remove that. Any
I'll
comments?
second it.
All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you very
Thank you,
much.
guys.
Okay, next item is 4.3 Shoreline Management Plan. And this is Eamon Martin's report. Is Eamon is with us live? Hi Eamon, welcome. We can't hear you at the moment, so you might be muted.
Kia ora koutou, good morning everyone.
That's correct. Thank you very much. So, yeah, a very comprehensive report in our agenda, all the papers. I'll just open up the floor for you to add any comments if you wish before we move to the resolution and comments from the board.
Okay, thank you. I thought I'd give a brief overview of the project to give it some context and then talk a little bit about the coastal panels, and that will lead in hopefully to nominations that we'll get from you today. So the Shoreline Management Project, significant project that goes right across the district. It's a 3-year project which has been funded up to or slightly over $1 million worth of work that's needing to be done. We're 1 year through the project, and so we're getting very close to having updated hazard information, which is good. So a lot of work has been going on in that area. What's key for the success of the project is to get community involvement. So one of the ways we're doing that is setting up these coastal panels. Because the area is so big, we've divided it up into 4 areas. So we've got the Thames and Thames Coast, Coromandel, all the way to and including Kennedy Bay. Down from Kennedy Bay, you've got Mercury Bay, and you've got a southeast area. So all 4 of those panels we've allowed two places for community board representatives. That's balanced by citizens and business representatives and iwi reps as well. So we're looking for a diverse range of people on the panels. The community board reps we're after are not actually councillors. So the councillors will have an opportunity in the process to look at and make decisions about the plan, but we're not bringing them into the community board. So I think that's a general overview, but if you've got questions, happy to answer those as well.
Thank you. So I'll open up the floor. Anybody have any questions?
What the coastal panels, were you looking at number of people who would be on that, not counting perhaps 2 community board members?
Yeah, we're looking for 10 or 12 coastal panel representatives. So we've put out a little bit of advertising, and we've had quite good feedback. We've had a few people from Colville, I think, nominate themselves. So that's positive. Yes, so yeah, we're looking for today. We're really looking for nominations from the community board. But if you're aware of people that are half interested and would be suitable, it's good to give them a bit of a push to put their names forward as well.
Okay, does anybody in the board have a burning desire to come on to this panel?
I do.
Come? Yeah. Jean?
Yeah. Oh, sorry, no.
Jean?
Yes.
Jean?
No, thank you.
No?
Who were the 2? You encourage Duncan and Jen.
Jean, yeah. In terms of the community, I mean, I'm thinking like Kick Bay, they've done some good work there, and they're protecting the little bay, haven't they? So they've obviously got a keen angle on shoreline protection. It'd be good to have somebody from Kick Bay up there.
You mean Corby-Darty?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yes. I was going to say.
that is what he meant.
Okay, well, there's a couple of people that have been nominated. So our recommendation now. Yep. Any other questions for Eamon?
Do you have a criteria for people who would be on that panel? Like, is there questions that you would be asking them? Like the people who put their names forward, it's about, is it, you know, what their motives are, what they hope to achieve, or whatever.
Yeah, it's interesting because we're after a diverse group of people to represent different interests. So we wouldn't want everyone who's an engineer or everyone who's work for dock, so to speak. So not that we don't want both of those people, but we don't want them all to be the same. So I think it's a little bit open-ended, and it'll be a case of balancing what nominations we get to make sure that various groups are represented.
This will be an ongoing project, won't it?
Yes. So the intention, we're year one into 3 years, so we'll be at least 18 months working with the panel, the coastal panels. There's a series of 10 meetings programs, so it's probably every two months that we'll be having a meeting. First kind of ones will be trying to identify what values and things are important, as well as giving an overview of hazards. Towards the end, we'll come up with the terms called adaptive pathways. So if you get this eventuate, 0.5 metre sea level rise, what's the pathway we're likely to take? And that will be, we don't know what the solutions are, but it could be engineering or planning. That's all part of the work we still need to do.
Excellent.
And this has come from those meetings that we had around the peninsula last year. This is what's come out of it, from the feedback from the communities. Yep.
So that this helps. One of the strong feedback from the community is that they wanted to stay engaged and be part of the process. So this is doing that. Those meetings were kind of initiation meetings to get some awareness of the project. We'll probably be having some of those meetings towards the end of this calendar year, so people, the wider community, stay aware as well as things going out in the normal newspapers and other comms.
Okay. Any further questions? There being none, so the resolution at the moment, as it reads, is that the Coromandel-Colville Community Board received the Shoreline Management Plan Project Update of 11 May 2020 and resolves that members Brett and Autumn represent the Coromandel-Colville Community Board on the Coromandel-Colville Coastal Plan. I'm happy to move that. Does anybody have a seconder? Can I have a seconder?
Coastal panel?
Yeah, coastal panel.
Coastal panel. I'm happy to move that. Do we have a seconder? John, thank you. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. And I see Leslie waiting in the wings there.
Thank you for that.
Kia ora, everyone.
Hi, Leslie.
Morning.
Welcome.
Thank you.
We can hear
I
you.
think this
Can
is-
you hear us all right?
Yes, I can. Thank you very much. I think this is my first appearance before the community board, so I thought I'd better just introduce myself. I'm Leslie Vifus. I'm a principal strategic planner, and I work under Joe Cook-Munro, who you've just seen a couple of items ago. So nice to be with you this morning.
Excellent. Well, we've seen your reports and we've had time to digest it on the audit paper. And I'll just open up the floor. Has anybody got any questions for Leslie, or is there anything, Leslie, that you'd like to state before we deliberate this?
No, I think the report, the cover report and the draft strategy are fairly self-explanatory. I have a kind of a overview of the strategy at the beginning of the report that just basically says, you know, that what we found is that we've got enough and a diversity of open space networks for future community needs. There is an adequate provision of community facilities across the district, and particularly in Coromandel-Colville, including cemeteries, libraries, toilets, swimming pools. But we have got some challenges, including the age and conditions of our buildings, and our equipment on our open spaces, the changing community needs as our community ages, and we have got a fairly slow growing population, seasonal peak, which you will know about, and the affordability of repurposing community facilities to meet those changing needs. And of course, we've got the risk from natural hazards. Those are the main issues for our open spaces and community facilities for the next 30 years. How we afford maintenance, how we get to be more efficient is dealt with in the strategy. So it establishes a platform for improving and having a consistent, effective and efficient approach to managing open spaces and community facilities in the future. If there are any questions, happy to answer them.
Through Chair, in 1.12, community facilities, I'm just wondering if this could include reserves that are right in town itself, such as the Samuel James Reserve and the Hauraki Reserve and Whangarahe Reserve, if they could be included. Those are right in more or less in the town centre. It talks mostly about the other outside of those.
Through the chair, because this is an overarching document, I haven't been able to mention all the open spaces and reserves in your community board area, but certainly I am aware of those, and they have been included and accounted for when we've looked at how many open, have you got enough and where is it? We looked in terms of your town reserves. Is it within a 10-minute, the New Zealand Recreation Association recommends that you have reserves that generally within a 10-minute walking distance of, the bulk of your population. And so we've looked at that sort of thing. I'm happy to mention a couple of those by name though. It's just when we're talking about so many reserves across the district, it's hard to include everybody in there, but they certainly are captured in the thinking around the strategy.
Okay. Well, even if the reference was made to reserves that are in the CBD, perhaps, okay, that would cover those kind of spaces. Thank you.
Yes, Jen's right, but it's also not a statutory document, is it? So it hasn't got any legal weight as such, and it does reference the reserve management plan already, and those reserves that Jen's are included in the reserve management plan. So that is kind of captured somewhere in it.
Yes, definitely, they have been. Yeah, because a lot of those reserves also have community facilities on them, like Hauraki House. They have definitely been taken into account. But I will mention a couple of them just to give that extra flavour in the strategy.
I'm guessing up here we'd have some of the older buildings too, Coromandel Town.
Yes, well, your hall is one of your community facilities for sure. And across the district, there are a number of community facilities like that.
Okay, I have another one. Table 1 on page 13 of your report, or page 241 in ours. You've got in the wards like Coromandel-Colville, you've got none, like sport field provision. Yes. So we do have a field at the moment, and it's the designation of the reserve next to it is recreation, and so I'm just wondering, and also where it is on Pound Street, where it all backs onto that whole area, doesn't get a mention anywhere, and just in there. That's why I'm just wondering whether. What page are you on? I'm on page 241 in my...
The sports ground is mentioned in the next paragraph.
It is, I know that, and I did read that. It's just that on the table, which is where people have a tendency to go to, it doesn't look like we have anything.
That's one thing to give some consideration to, Leslie, might be whether that table included non-council owned sports fields as well, because when we look over further at some of the other facilities, we have included non-council things, so it might be worth thinking about putting some of the non-council owned facilities such as the Coromandel Sports Park.
Yes, through the chair. Thank you, Alan, and thank you, Jan. Because the strategy is about council-owned property and council-owned open space, that's what we've kept our focus on. But I think the strategy does acknowledge that we're actually working in partnership with a whole number of community organizations, with the Ministry of Education, with the Department of Conservation. So certainly, I will double check, but my thinking is that we put none in there because there are no sports fields that are actually classified or classified under the New Zealand Recreation Association as a sports field. They probably have a recreation or a neighborhood park classification, and it doesn't mean to say that they're not being used in that way. It's just that technically they haven't been classified that way, but I will double check.
Yep. Happy with that?
Yep, okay. Yep, thank you. I've just got one other thing, sorry. On page 18 for you and page 246 for us on table 3, you've got Mercury Bay as having 41 public toilets. Is that a mistake?
No, I don't.
And it just seems like that they've got a lot of public toilets, and a lot of the work that's going to be done in Mercury Bay is there's going to be work continuing for them to have allocations for things that it just seems disproportionate even to Thames, or it seems a huge amount when we're really a bit short of them actually in this area. So sorry, I wanted to check that it wasn't a typo.
Through the chair, I don't think it is a typo. I was fairly astounded at the figure myself, but that is from the council's records. So, but I will double check. Thank you for raising that.
You don't need to, it's correct.
You don't need to check it.
Okay,
Yep.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions?
Through the chair, I have been telling the other community boards that I know it's sort of on the spot on the day to give me feedback. It's difficult, but if any of the members would like to email me, I will just type in my email address and phone number onto the conversation page for the meeting. And if you'd like to get in touch with me again to give me any additional feedback, I'm happy to take that on board.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Conversation seems to have dried up on that one, so I'll read the resolution as it is at the moment. I don't think there's any changes needed. That we, Coromandel-Colville Community Board receives the draft Thames-Coromandel District Council Open Space and Community Facilities Strategy Report dated 25 March 2020. And number 2, provide staff with comment on the draft open space and community facilities strategy for consideration by council at its 23rd June 2020 meeting. So leaving that resolution as it is, do we have a mover?
Yep, I'll move that.
Thank you. And the seconder? Kim, thank you very much. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Thank you, Leslie. Thank you for all your hard work. It's a lot of effort's gone into that, and I look forward to seeing it progress through council.
Thank you. Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.
And we invite John Ruston to join us.
Which one is it?
The next one is 6.1, properties and facilities. Hello, John.
Hello, Mr. Chairman, board members, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for your report. I'll just give you an opportunity to speak to it first if you wish, and then we'll open the floor up for any discussion from the community board. Anything you'd like to add to your...
You have to help me first, Mr. Chairman. I missed the first part. Which item is this one?
Application to grant a licence to Spark New Zealand Limited.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, so,
all right. Well, I'm sure the board members have a little bit of a knowledge of this one. This is the temporary mobile cell tower site up at the Pound Street. It had gone it had got approval from the chief after discussions with yourself, Mr. Chairman, just in terms of a temporary occupation, which is terminable on 10 days' notice. And then there was just a feeling that perhaps a little bit more for formality and through the more formal and usual channels of the community board and council to move it forward. Now, of course, you know, we may or may not be moving to level 1 COVID level, you know, this week, next week, who knows what that story is. But so this is like a backstop position to just give it some formality, a chance for all board members to formally put a view and the board collectively to put a recommendation to council. It may all turn out to, you know, to come to nothing with the COVID situation, but at the moment, the proposal there, the key point is that in the recommendations is the term of the licence is still being terminable on 10 days' notice. In fact, we have, at the request of the Chief Executive, we had already given some weeks ago Spark notice that that would take effect to terminate the existing licence 10 days into level 1 when we reach that point. I suppose the other key point is this is only for a temporary arrangement. It's not a permanent cell site. Spark is still going to have to try and find a permanent site of their own choosing.
Yes, and I think you're absolutely right. That's a discussion to be had in the future. We're just talking about this cell on wheels. I find heart in the fact that it says that 10 days after the government declares that the COVID-19 alert level 1 comes into effect is the expiration date of this agreement.
Correct.
So,
Correct. But that's not to stop us, Mr. Chairman, turning around and changing that right now. We could give 10 days notice today if that was, you know, the will of the council.
Right, yep. Well, so I'll just open the floor up. Any questions of John on this matter?
I'd just point out on the map that the depot site is in the wrong place, but I'm sure that doesn't, not that that really matters. I just wanted to clarify one thing, John. In 3 significance and engagement, Spark has had opposition to establishing a permanent tower site in Coromandel in 2019. I'd just like to change that to say, if it could be, Spark has had opposition to establishing a permanent cell tower on the site. It was based on the site and location of the tower being installed at 70 Tiki Road. It wasn't about being
to the tower.
Yeah, because there isn't opposition to the tower being a tower, a permanent.
Can I just interrupt you? Procedurally, we can't change the report, but we can record that in the minutes.
Okay, thank you. All right, okay. Yep. That could then be recorded. Yeah, just to clarify that.
Where was that comment?
Yeah, so I think that would...
number 3, and the first paragraph.
Oh, sorry, I'm looking at the actual gender.
Oh, it's,
I've got significance and engagement, is that right?
6.1, significance and engagement, yeah.
I'll make a note in the minutes, Jen.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, I see this, Peter, as it's in no way permanent. It's not trying to circumvent any sort of public consultation in the future for what may or may not happen. And I'm actually happy with the resolution as it sits. Have to move it if you want to put it forward. Yep. Okay.
So Jan's point, then you'll just put that into the conversation piece?
Yes, I'll just
Yep.
yeah.
So the resolution as it stands, is there any other discussion before we read this? No, okay. Recommend that the Coromandel-Colville Community Board receives the application to grant a licence to Spark New Zealand Limited report dated 18th May 2020. And number 2, recommends to council that it enters a licence to occupy Part 100 Pound Street, Coromandel with Spark New Zealand Limited on the following terms on 10 days notice, rental of $1 if demanded, and Spark obtaining all necessary consents and permitted use mobile cell tower. So it's been moved by John. Do we have a seconder? Kim? Yep. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you very much. Thank you, John. So that's fine. We've got plenty of, we've got plenty of options there around this longevity, so that's fine. Your next item is actually in public excluded, which is a bit later in our paper. So are you able to call in again a little bit later?
I'll come back, Mr. Chairman, no problem.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Rightio. So next up we have reports. So Bubbles has got the Coromandel-Colville Community Board Work Programme in there. Anything you'd like to go over with that, Bubbles? Sure you can.
I'll just take it as read, and if you, do you want to go through each one, or do you want to, what do you want to do?
What do you want to do, Tim?
Yeah, it's a concern.
Any questions you have
About any of the
any items? There's nothing that we need to highlight particularly. Yeah, well, first of all, one general point, everything that's in there about action planning for the next period, if it runs into the 2021 financial year, it's still subject to the final approval of the annual plan, which may or may not. Yes. Everything's in flag.
So that's anything that's mentioned in the action plan for next period 2021.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
It'll be
subject to the
plan.
annual plan. Yes. Yeah. Which is pretty much everything.
Yeah.
Pretty
We're
much.
getting close to the end of the financial year, so does most of what's in there. Not everything. Like, for example, the footpath construction, my understanding is that that's happening, the building of the benches around the trees and things. That's still happening this financial year. That's good.
Alan, can you just give me a bit of clarification on the Samuel James Reserve seating? Was that going to also be completed with the making it the same as what we're looking at doing in the streetscape?
Eventually, Jan,
Okay.
it's completely budget driven.
Okay.
And it is on the parks books to do it.
Yeah.
So there's about.
I'm just wondering if it could have been backdated to when those seats were actually installed as not being quite completed. And that we could actually, you know, use that budget maybe, I don't know, just to marry it in, that's all, because we're going to have to wait a couple of years to get that money. I'm just wondering if we can
I'll speak to Parks and see where and how that can happen.
Mm.
Okay. Everything else is pretty standard, I think, as we've been monitoring all the way through. Is there anything new that we're going to add to this works program?
I wouldn't think so, as we're approaching the end of the financial year.
There's nothing to be added.
No.
No.
Updated when we go into the new financial year.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, you've got things like little bay toilets and so on, still being investigated. I guess that can still be investigated. The land purchase of Harrogate House car park, that's still pending. I think that's gone to evaluation process now. So it's still underway.
It's completely in the ministry's court.
Okay. So any other questions in regards to the work program? You guys are just hungry, aren't you?
The main streets.
Not coming to 1:45. What's that?
The main streets.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, thank you. Slowly.
It's looking very
We're
smart.
getting
Yeah.
there.
It was,
The planting looks good,
yes,
doesn't
it's
it?
really nice.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool.
I thought it was going to be flowers, but it's not, but that's okay.
Yeah. The
Flowers are
flowers
more-
makes it an annual thing. We have to change the beds twice a year. It's a whole different level of cost.
Yeah.
Basically. But I think that looks pretty. We'll see how we go.
Yeah.
I had somebody say to me the other day, I can't drive around that roundabout. And I said, why? Oh, well, it's too hard. I said, well, slow down.
Exactly. That's what it requires, is people slowing down and knowing their road code.
Yes, very much so.
And there was some feedback early on in the what's happening in Coromandel Facebook page, but that seems to have dried up. So
Yeah.
I think people have got
I
used
thought
to it.
that
And
too.
I also, I think the Whangarahi Reserve, have you been down there lately?
I have.
This looks
Yep.
really good too.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. It's looking great with that.
By spring, I think it'll
Yeah.
look really nice.
Yep.
Mm.
All right, well, the recommendation as it stands is that the Coromandel-Colville Community Board receive the Coromandel-Colville Work Programme and other information updates report dated 25 March 2020. So do we have a mover and a seconder on that?
Yep, I'll move. That's
Thank you, Jan and Kim, thank you very much. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. Brilliant. Action schedule for Coromandel-Colville Community Board. This is a Nicole item. And
A lot of it's just follow up from
Yes.
the last
Yeah.
meeting, and it's really been a lot to add or.
And we've actually talked about pretty much most of it. John and I met with Mr. Barney about the land leaving town because.
so if there's no further discussion on that, then the resolution is that the Coromandel-Colville Community Board receive the action schedule for the Coromandel-Colville Community Board dated 25 March 2020. I'm happy to move that. Do we have a seconder?
Yep.
Yep. Jan, all those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Thank you very much. We shall move on to the next item, which is members' reports.
Do you want to go into public excluded first and then come back to members' reports, or
No, I think we should do it first, so that
do the members' report
for your
first?
recording, because you need to stop recording when you do exclude.
Yep. And we'll just follow the agenda as it is. Item 7.3, members' reports. Jean, anything you'd like to add? Bring to the,
No, thank you.
no, thank you. Jan?
I think we've dealt with some of this. Yep. Town centre signage, streetscape. Oh, we're due to do the signage. I think I emailed you, Ellen, a while ago. But anyway, about the signage and when we eventually do it, and I think I'd already spoken to Bruce about it, or we talked about it at the last meeting. If we could see a plan of that, I haven't yet seen a plan of the town signage that's going to go up after the roadworks are done, so that we can have a look at it as a board.
Okay, so I was a little unclear what you meant. We're only talking about like the signage that will go at the pedestrians, the signage so basically it's just road signage.
Yep, road signage.
Yeah.
Yeah, and where it's going to go, where it's just the plan of it and how it and what it's going to look like in terms of, I know there's things like things that we have to have, but things like wooden poles, perhaps rather than steel poles, with mitered corners, if that's what it, or edged corners, whatever it's called, just to fit in with the streetscape. With the streetscape guidelines of signage, public signage. So that's why it was going to maybe come to a board as a.
That might be my mistake. I recall we discussed signage, but I didn't recall discussing like the poles or anything like. So I probably didn't pick that up. We talked about it last time. So
yeah.
So if I missed that discussion on wooden versus steel, all that kind of stuff. Last meeting, I apologise. I'm just trying to think how we move it forward, because obviously you set standard signage and poles for all those road signs.
I know, that was what the discussion was about, and that could we see the plan of that, and the materials that and how that was made up, and look at how we could. Maybe look at it be wooden instead of steel or whatever, and have it looking as heritage looking as we could in the CBD.
Okay, I hear what you're saying. I guess my personal view is that neither of those options will look very heritage looking. They'll either be square white wooden posts or they'll be round wooden steel posts. What I can do is I can find out what they're planning to put in and let you know. Because obviously generally we move to the steel posts, with the railway base, if someone hits them. So I can confirm what we're actually intending to put in, and then we can see where we go to from there. I'm just a bit concerned, I suppose, I don't want to build up the expectation that there's another option when there actually might not be, steel or possibly wood, and neither of those are going to probably what you're thinking.
It was, the wood is what we were thinking.
Was it? Okay.
and the shape of them.
That's what I'm thinking.
Would timber would have safety issues, wouldn't it?
Yeah, well, we still
hold the
there are still putting stuff out there, and they usually will snap off at the base, the way they're constructed, but, we've generally moved away from the wooden ones, because they often end up on like a, because of the way they're constructed, so they break off, they often end up on a bit of an angle and stuff, and then they look messy, because they're not vertical, and they look like they're leaning. So yeah, but I can find out, what they're intending to put in there, just to double check.
Yep, okay. Yep.
Just being mindful that my understanding is that all of this is supposed to be completed by Wednesday next week. So you're on a very tight time frame if you want to have anything changed.
Yeah, I didn't realise it was Wednesday, I knew it was financial year, but that is very tight.
Yep.
But let me make a phone call after this, and I'll just.
Did flag it in level 4 in an email.
I did.
Yep.
To them.
Yes, to you, Ellen, and the board. Yep.
Yes, I definitely saw your email, Jan.
Yep.
I misunderstood though.
Right.
I have to say.
Okay.
I thought that the discussion around the look of the signage and all of that in the town was something that we had discussed as part of a budget that the board was putting in the long-term plan to look at the whole town in terms of the streetscape guidelines. So that's
definitely
what I
looking at that, of course.
I
but
didn't realise
yeah.
it was attending to the signs now as part of this project. So
Okay.
that is my misunderstanding.
Okay, well, it might have been then, I might have been unclear because I mean, I'm aware of the future in our signage thing, and that's, you know, quite a ways away. It was just as regards the town upgrade and the finishing of that and the signage for that.
You mentioned expectation too, Bruce. I think there'd be laws we have to follow. And I would imagine the pedestrian crossing and things like that.
I do recall we discussed that.
I think Jan's more talking about the aesthetics of what those things look like rather than, and we need to find out how far we can go.
I can't see anyone, so apologies if that mistake.
Was in level 4, we were all a bit, you know, kind of, and I know that you were already working anyway with stuff, so, yep.
I think, just realistically, I think we're in a position where the signs are going to have to go in as they are planned, whatever that is at the moment. I think if changes need to be made, it's going to need to be part of that bigger
picture
piece of work, I think. Because certainly I wasn't aware that we're referring to the standard road signs. Like I thought we were talking about the tactile pavers and all that sort of stuff that has been sorted as far as I'm aware. The right stuff has gone in with all of that. So the stuff that we could control, we changed. But my understanding was the other road signs and that were going to be the standard thing. But I think given that work, they're probably sitting here waiting to be put up, I imagine. Already. So I think it's too late for that. But certainly as part of that wider review, we're talking about, let's look at them as part of that.
We'll keep monitoring.
It's, I mean, then I'd like to say, and I accept what you're saying, we have a tendency in this town to accept, oh gosh, it's too late now, and these things have a tendency to stay, and so I just really feel that we have had this opportunity, and we did talk about it, and it was minuted and noted, and so I do hear what you're saying, Ellen, and I am going to have to accept that, but I just think that we need to just.
If we slipped up, we slipped up, but I certainly thought, I think it related to the standard road signs, it was just all the other things that we could change, but anyway, we can certainly review all that.
It's to do with the whole thing when we did the upgrade it's within the streetscape guidelines and everything accordingly.
So just say that currently it's the metal poles, because it's likely that that's what it is, and that we asked, can we have wooden poles? And they said, yes, that's not a problem. Are you just talking white, like the signpost poles?
Well, it has to be.
Just the white.
It has to be, yes.
Posts.
They have to be that, but that's.
The street signs so on?
Yes.
Is it possible instead of the roundabout signs and the giveaways that we can have the wooden poles? That's the minimum we can.
Yeah, I didn't take good enough eye when I drove through it this morning to see that they've actually got all the bases and already and all that kind of stuff as well. So you on the spot there.
Well, the signs that indicate roundabout are already in.
Yeah.
but be too high. They put them in too high, so they've got to lower those anyway. Yeah, because lots of people in driving are saying there are no signs. Well, they are, but you've got to.
Yeah, and you cause an accident to see them.
So, yeah, we can only answer it.
Yeah, exactly. I can make a phone call, see where we're at. Yeah.
Thank you. Yep.
Yep, have you finished, James? Anything else?
No, that's, thanks. Oh, hang on. Sorry. Oh, it's okay, because I was going to talk about the insurance on council, but you've had a letter and it's okay. So, no, that's it. Thanks. Oh, that's right, that was my report, wasn't it? Sorry to take up so much.
Kim, have you got any members?
Well, I have, but it was just a finish off of the signage.
Yes.
Is there more signage coming into town about camper vans going to the car park rather than coming through town? Is there something going in? Does anybody know? I know we've discussed it on numerous times.
Is there something already down by the BP petrol station that indicates for camper vans to?
Yep, there is.
There is, and it has
It's
been
not
for a long time, but it's not, it's not in your face.
No.
What's Brian? Brian asked if he was here for the bylaws.
Sorry, Kim, what were you?
Well, I just wanted to know, is there going to be something more? Because we have discussed it in the past, that we were trying to get camper vans to turn straight into the car park rather than going into town.
Nothing is planned that I'm aware of, but I don't see why we can't do something, and I understand there's a whole lot of work being going into domestic tourism with motor caravan friendly towns and all of that, so that could be part of that.
Yeah.
So I'll certainly make a note of it, please. Yeah.
One thing we did talk about just about that is that we talked about the possibility of there being a camper van drawn on the road. You know how you see when some towns that you go to, on the entrance with an arrow that's there, which would be...
That would work. That would be better than probably in your face sign.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They have to come in anyway for the dump station and the water. So they're always going to come in.
Yeah, I know, but if they've given that alternative before they actually get to the main street, might help with a bit of a flow.
I think so.
A big sign that said camper van parking, turn right.
Yeah, because we don't want parking in town. Yeah.
And no, I haven't really got a report because it's just not been anything
Okay,
for me.
that's all good. John, have you got a members?
No.
No, as such, okay. I haven't really got one either, other than to say that I did present the annual plan to council via video not that long ago, and I'm sure council will let us know their reaction to that in due course.
I understand you're in for the chair.
Already? Okay, so the resolution as it reads is that the Coromandel-Colville Community Board receive the members' report. Can we move it to that?
I'll move that.
Thank you, John. Second, yep, Kim, all those in favour, please say aye.
Aye. Now, just before we go into public excluded, Brian is here to just answer any questions that anybody may have had regarding that bylaw report. I know
In
Joe's
terms
already-
of from a monitoring
From a
perspective
monitoring
and an enforcement perspective, if you had any questions about what council can and can't do
Okay, so,
currently.
yeah. So we discussed earlier the potential bylaw around leg traps. And I gather you're here perhaps to offer some input into that or to answer any questions we may have about that.
Yeah, I was simply here to answer any questions on anything. You know, I didn't know Bruce was going to get there. I would have loved to come up and see you all, but I got told 12 o'clock, so it's great that you're ahead of time. If there are no questions, that's fine. I can jump off and answer questions by email if they come up over the next few weeks, or if you've got anything pressing now, happy to answer anything.
I thought your presence here meant that we've moved up from 103 to near the top already. Okay, are there any questions?
No.
There being none, I'll thank you for popping in, but enjoy your lunch.
Thanks.
Thanks, Brian.
Okay, so the next items are to exclude the public, so the recommendation is that the public be excluded from the following parts of the proceedings of this meeting, namely the public excluded minutes for confirmation, proposal to lease Pound Street, Coromandel, and Coromandel Thames bus service. Do we have a mover and a seconder for that?
Yep.